Welcome back to the Flex Diet Podcast, where we talk about all things to increase performance, add muscle, better body composition, all in a flexible approach and without destroying your health in the process. I'm your host, Dr. Mike T. Nelson, and today on the program I've got my really good buddy, Dr. Brian Grasso. You may have heard of Brian. I originally saw him present, oh man, almost going back probably 2 decades ago now, when he was part of the IYCA in Arizona. Been a big fan of his ever since. Worked with him briefly on the Mindset project for a couple of years as a director of research there. And just a wonderful guy. And he has recently taken up the sport of powerlifting as of the age 49 right now. So he's only about 1 year older than I am. I wanted to get him on the podcast here. One, just to chat with him and see how he's doing and have him share with you all the lessons you can learn from lifting and translate them into your life and your business. So even though we use examples from powerlifting, you don't necessarily have to be a powerlifter to get a lot out of this conversation. Any type of exercise you do, even if you're an endurance person, if we've got a handful of those people listening, which is great, the same lessons can be transferred to your life and your business. So it's great to chat about the positive transfer training and just get caught up with everything that Brian has going on. If you enjoyed this podcast and you want to learn about how to increase your own recovery, be more resilient, even anti-fragile with true longevity gains with a Z, check out the Physiologic Flexibility Certification. It will open again in mid-March, so coming up here very soon. Go to physiologicflexibility.com for all the details, and that'll be the way to get on the wait list. It'll be only open for a limited time this coming mid-March 2023 and won't open again probably till late fall or so. So go to physiologicflexibility.com to check that out and enjoy our wonderful conversation here with Dr. Brian Grasso. I wanted to have you on and just talk about some of the lessons in life and business that you can learn from lifting, because it seems like this would be an obvious topic. Like, you would think that people who are very disciplined in the gym or disciplined in one particular area in your life, the assumption is that would carry over and transpire to other areas of their life. And what I found was, in some people, that's 100% true. And other people, like people I've coached, and you've probably seen this before, their lifting, their nutrition, everything that they're doing focused on that. They were 100% on. Bombs could go off in the rest of their life. They were still at the gym. They were still doing the work. But then later you realize the rest of their life was just an absolute floating trash bin fire, because they couldn't figure out like that the discipline that they had to do this one thing was a skill that transfers to other aspects of their life.
Yeah.
And then once they figured that out, they're like, oh my gosh, like I already have this skill. It was just like Nassim Taleb talks about, like domain dominance. It was just only in this one little area. It never occurred to me to transfer some of these other skills to different areas.
Yeah. You said a lot there that was so good. I think first of all, there's an axiom that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Yeah. I don't find that to be true though.
I find that completely faulty. Because there are certain aspects of my life that I do a really good job in, and there's others that are a dumpster fire. So I've never found that axiom to be even remotely accurate. But one of the things you said that I wholly agree with, you frame discipline as a skill. And I don't think most people see it as a skill. I think they believe it's inborn. It's somehow intrinsic. I don't believe it is in the least. At least it hasn't played that way out in my life or my experiences with my own clients. I think discipline is a skill that can be refined and just over time. And one of the biggest lessons for me that I've taken from powerlifting into other aspects of my life is I always qualify it as layered discipline. For example, when I look at all the things that I need to do or perhaps want to do in a given day or week that are very metric oriented for me as a powerlifter, when I first started my journey in powerlifting, I had to learn that biting them off all at once was not going to be effective for me. So I would select the highest priorities for week one. And for example, I'll be slightly arbitrary, but at the same time, not really. I learned early on how much 10 to 12,000 steps a day mattered as a powerlifter. I didn't know that going in. I'm almost 50 years old. I'm very late to the powerlifting game. So as much as I worked in strength and conditioning for 25 odd years, I was a neophyte amateur as a competitive athlete in the sport of powerlifting. So steps became obvious to me as a necessity. And I found myself fighting it for the first numbers of weeks. So what I realized was that I was trying to get steps, hydration, macros, mobility. I was trying to lump it all in at one time.
And you had a business and a life too.
And,
It wasn't like this was your only thing.
yeah, wife, 2 kids, couple dogs.
Yeah.
So the layers of discipline for me were I chose the highest yielding tasks to start off, which for me ended up being mobility and steps. And I put them into my routine, and I left them there exclusively for as many as 3 weeks until it became very habitual. And then I felt I could add another layer of discipline, and I did. And now it became a very success-oriented way of being the powerlifter I wanted to be. Mobility, steps, hydration, macros, they're all just habitual now. But it all started by me recognizing discipline as a layer, as a skill, and layering things in over time.
Yeah, I love that. I always think of some of the work I do for my own clients, and I work part-time now with some of the guys at Rapid Health. So Andy Galpin and Dan Gardner and the Barbell Shrug guys. And we're both kind of on the same page. And when I came in, their system was already set up to look at all these different things. And so I'm helping with the visible stressor side, but it was very much the same mindset of, okay, what's the main leverage? Like, where can I start that's going to move the ball forward? This doesn't mean it's the only thing they're going to do. Obviously, there's multiple points, but I think of like sleep is a big, sexy topic now.
Yeah.
And if you go, there's lots of physiologic reasons people need more sleep, 100%.
Yeah.
But if you try to talk to clients day one with very little buy-in about, bro, just go to bed 2 hours earlier and it'll solve all your issues. Like, it's not quite that simple from an implementation standpoint, especially when you're having their nutrition and you're having all these other things on top of it. So same way to your layered approach, I think of what things have the most leverage from the physiologic response and the client's ability to actually execute them.
Yeah.
And then start there. So like you said, walking. Okay, walking for most people, does it take time? Does it take a little planning? Yes. But you just put your shoes on and walk out the door. Like, you don't need to warm up. You don't need to take your pre-workout. You don't need to, there's not a lot of other stuff you need to do beforehand. And again, a lot of leverage with just general movement too, so I really like that because I think a lot of people get hyper motivated, and I get kind of red flags go off in my head when you have a new client who's just tell me everything to do and I'll execute all of it at 100%. You're like, no, let's start here.
Yes. You think you will, but no, you won't.
Right. It's like,
attitude.
yeah, and it's like, I love the motivation, but I also know that it's temporary. There's no skill beneath that high level motivation.
Yeah. And see, you keep coming back to skill, which I love, because I'll take discipline over motivation any day.
Yes.
Yet you have to look at discipline as a skill. There's no question about it. I love you keep coming back that direction. You said something a couple of seconds ago that for me in my brain, it lends to the conversation because sleep is such a hot topic. And look, I know what I know. I'm good at what I'm good at. And I have a general thirst to learn more, but I also hedge my bets on there's really smart people who know a lot more than I do. And I can read the next 75 books on the topic and they'll still know more than me. So how about I just pay them for their time and their expertise?
Yeah.
So I've chosen not to become a sleep guru by any stretch, but instead inquire with sleep coaches that I trust and respect as people. And it's a funny thing. I've had two sleep coaches. One I didn't see eye to eye with, and it wasn't volcanic by any stretch. It's just second, he just worked so much better for me. And that's because he allowed for the conversation of subjectivity, which I think is a really important part of success in anything, be it business or sport. And it's certainly a lesson I've learned in the weight room that I've applied to their other parts of my life. I can't tell you conclusively that mobility was the most important thing when I started learning the skill of discipline, but it felt like it was. And that matters a lot. And the reason I bring up sleep is that I think it can be a controversial topic. The first sleep coach I had, he used to give mandates. This is how much sleep you need a night. And this is how we should go about getting that sleep. Now, I've known myself for all of my 49 years. And what I can tell you is from the time I was very young until present day, I don't sleep through the night particularly. Now, that doesn't mean I'm a bad sleeper. It just means 8 hours in a bed just doesn't, I don't know, something about it that just doesn't work in my head, or I don't know what it is. But the more he pressed 7 to 8 hours of sleep and take these supplements if you're waking up and do this if you're not feeling rested, the more I found myself resisting. And then the second sleep coach, he allowed me to test, literally. And he used heart rate variability. And I don't know if I'm always open to you disagreeing. I just do what I'm told by my coaches, but he used rested, fasted blood glucose as indicators. And what he found over time is that apparently I'd function better if I'm getting 5 hours sleep at night, but an hour to a 90-minute nap window in the early afternoon the next day. Apparently I respond to that incredibly well. Now, I don't know if that matches the physiology of what sleep science shows, but here's what I can tell you. Subjectively, I feel really good. And so I think subjectivity matters a great deal. I think more athletes and more entrepreneurs should follow the hard and fast rule of metrics where it applies, but subjectivity is also important. And matter of fact, Mike, you're one of the first people who ever taught me that. I remember you saying to me so many times that too many scientists underestimate the value of case study as
Oh yeah.
legitimate data. How you feel should matter in the equation somewhere.
Yeah. And that's hard too, because the little phrase I like is "Research points the direction, but research gives you the answer."
That's great.
Because as a coach, you're tasked with this dualism of hopefully understanding the research and knowing the better direction to go in, but then also realizing that's all based on averages and statistics, and you're sitting there with an N of one in front of you. How do you deal with that? Like, how do you meld the research to get you in the right direction so you're not out in left field doing God knows what crazy ass biohack their latest of the week is,
Right.
to understanding, like you said, okay, let's run the experiment. Okay, oh, you sleep better in the afternoon, you have a shorter rest at night, but all your metrics are good, HRV, blood glucose, whatever metrics you want to use, obviously performance. If all your numbers are good, who am I to say that's bad? You know what I mean? It's like everything on the system says it's okay.
Yeah.
And you might be just a different outlier, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's funny you say that, because it's always been my standard challenge with not all by any stretch, but some of Western medical research is that it's done disproportionately on ill people.
Of course it is.
It's certainly not it doesn't represent me necessarily. So I've always had a challenge when it becomes very declarative that this is the prescription for X or Y, when I know factually that a lot of your research was done on people who are not my age demographic nor my health level whatsoever. So you said something in there that made me think of that.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest mistakes I see from some educated people, the people who are attempting to read research, which is great, is not stating the population that it was done.
Yeah.
And just because keto diet worked best for this pathology doesn't mean all you people without that pathology need to do a keto diet. And I'm just picking that as an example.
Sure.
But a lot of times we forget the context of it's an old, hairy, one-eyed ferret study, and people are now like, oh, bro, you got to go this thing. It's it's okay if you state the context and that we have no other prior data, and here's my speculation. Yeah, I'm all right with that. But a lot of people have these like logical, chasmatic leaps of just, oh, it must be good for you now. It's like, oh.
So who's that? Is it Neil Tyson McGrath? Is that his name, that scientist? Neil Tyson?
The astrophysics guy?
Yeah. So look, this is as contentious a topic as there is in existence right now, but I'm not actually speaking about it from am I allowed to say the word even? Am I allowed to say the pandemics, the word of COVID? Am I allowed to say that?
No.
I saw him in an interview just a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact. And I guess the person who was interviewing him made a point that the vaccination stuff had only been researched for 9 months, when in reality, most vaccines are researched for a decade or longer to understand cause and effect, correlation, side effects, etc. And the astrophysics guy, whose name's escaping right now, he defended it. He defended the research completely by saying it doesn't matter how long you test something for, it matters on the number of people you test it on. And again, this has got nothing to do with vaccines or I couldn't care less. But in my head, I was like, I think you're missing an X factor of, but who did you test? That really matters a great deal. A lot, as a matter of fact. I want to know there was a cross section of a lot of ages, a lot of genders, and a lot of ethnicities and everything else. The fact he missed that, I was like, sometimes educated people don't necessarily understand the research either.
Yeah, and I think my guess is it's different when you're doing research on things that are not humans, right?
Yeah,
If you're looking at particles, you're looking at other things, there's some more definitive things you can narrow, I think, some of the variability, or at least you have a better understanding of the variability.
sure.
But humans have always just fascinated me how wide the variability is on both ends of the spectrum. It's like in physiology, the fact that you could probably live on Pop Tarts for a good couple decades. And
Yeah,
would you be healthy? No. Is there
yeah,
going to be a consequence to that? Absolutely.
yeah.
But you're not just going to drop dead probably within a few months. The fact that you could be sustained on this crazy food is couldn't put sugar in the gas tank in my car and get around the block.
Yeah.
But on the other end of the spectrum, if you look at high level athletics, like the amount of things you would need to do to get that extra 0.001%, there's a lot of other things that add up to that. And you've got this massive amount of variability within the system that we're always trying to wrap our heads around. And for even for lifting performance, like you're always going to be limited by just limited data because performance research, there's just not a lot of money in doing that research. It's getting better. So some people are always arguing that, oh, we could use more data. And I'm like, yeah, we could always use more data. That's
Right.
well done. Right. But at some point, you have to make a decision based on the data in front of you of what is the action that you're going to take.
Sure.
And even like the simple thing of consensus, people are like, oh, we're waiting for a consensus in the literature. It's like, okay. How many studies do you need? How well do the studies have to be done? Like these
Right.
things, what population? And at the end of the day, everybody's left with, I feel okay about this amount of data versus that amount of data. And there's
Right.
no hard cutoff per se either. So,
That's a great point. And it's funny as this conversation is going on, I'm recognizing that these idiosyncratic things you're saying, and I often don't know what they are, but they're tripping me into another thought.
yeah.
You just said there, they're got me thinking about success in the weight room. What has it taught me for other aspects of my life? This was actually a big one, and somehow it was jogged by something you said. Oh, I remember what it was. You talked about elite athletes, like high performing athletes. Having worked with high performing athletes as a performance coach for many years, I knew this intellectually at the time. It's not until I became a high performing athlete later in life that I experienced it firsthand. And but when I did, it was a wonderful experience and it allowed me to look at other parts of my life. And here's basically the lesson. There are far too many people who are content to ask the question of themselves, what's my goal? And that becomes the only question. I contend there should be a second question, which is, what are you prepared to sacrifice in order to achieve that goal? And I say that because at least the high end athletes I dealt with, there's a general consensus in society that high end athletes are incredibly healthy people. I'm here to tell you they're not. They're not at all.
Not usually.
No, there's a great deal of sacrifice that goes into that level of performance. And oftentimes the sacrifice is health related in some capacity. So it wasn't just I became a power lifter with lofty goals, but I had to have conversations with myself of what I was prepared to sacrifice in order to achieve what it was I wanted. I've carried that lesson through in business and it really has transformed a great deal. I've been blessed and always been successful in business, but I've seen that success grow much more effortlessly ever since I started asking myself the question, okay, this is what you claim you want, but what are you prepared to sacrifice in order to? That's a great lesson I learned from the weight room that has drawn a straight line to other aspects of my life. I really enjoyed asking myself that question in different parlors of my world.
Yeah. And I think it's as simple as you have a new client or yourself. What is the cost?
Yeah.
What cost are you willing to pay? And this could be everything from 1 to 10 scale on how much joint pain you want to walk around with,
Mhm.
to your health, to your time, to risk versus reward. And I think those are good conversations to sit down and think about. Like for myself, my number one goal is more lifting is related to kiteboarding in terms of an overarching goal.
Yeah.
And I've already assumed that at some point there's a high chance I probably will be. I'm going to do everything possible to, reduce the risk. You're trying to jump 20, 30 feet in the air. Something goes wrong. You get dropped out of the sky like a sack of potatoes. Things go wrong, but I'm okay with that risk. I'm going to do everything I can to hopefully mitigate it. But to me, when I walk in the gym, that risk is different. Like for me, because the gym is more of a controlled environment, it's not my absolute number one priority. I'm very low tolerant of injury, risk, pain, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Where other people may not be. I've worked with some very high level athletes who literally told me, if I win the Olympics or this high level thing in the next 4 years, I don't care much about how I feel after.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Well, yeah.
okay, as long as you've actually sat down and put a lot of time and effort into it, it's not just a knee jerk response, then that's your parameters, right? That's your constraint of your system. And everyone's going to be a little bit different within that spectrum too.
I agree. And that's what makes it, I think it's such a beautiful exercise is that there is no party line. There is no right or wrong answer. You have to understand yourself well and know what you're prepared to sacrifice. But I like the fact you use the word cost. That's probably a better phraseology for it. There's a cost to everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's a cost to health as much as there is a cost to overperformance in sports. Are you aware of the costs? And what is your litmus test for how far those costs can go? Just like you, I remember distinctly having a conversation with a Canadian velodrome athlete who was preparing for I believe it was the 2000 Olympics. And I was doing a lot of work with her in her mental performance. And we had this conversation one time and I asked her, she was advanced age. As a matter of fact, I still think she's the oldest velodrome medalist ever. She
Oh,
won
wow.
gold. Yeah, she won gold, but I believe she was 40 when she won gold. She's
Oh,
the
wow.
oldest, I
That's
believe,
goals for that sport.
right. Yeah. And so we had a conversation one time about the rest of her life. And she said to me what you said you've had conversations with athletes about. She said that I will make what the rest of my life is, I'll make do with what it is to win this gold medal. And I said, listen, if you understand the cost, then great. That's nothing wrong with that. You're making a choice. You're a grown ass adult. So good on you.
Yeah. In terms of a non-sports context, I had the same decision when I was finishing my PhD, which I won't spend much time talking about it because nothing really went right and it took 7 years. But
Sure.
about 3.5 years into the process, I had completed my oral exams and you've gone through PhD process. So,
Sure.
it's not the most fun thing in the world. And I remember coming home, talking to my wife at the time and being like, okay, this is something I really want to do. Okay, are you okay if I don't even finish at this institution? Can I go somewhere else and fly back home on weekends? And
Yeah.
in terms of health parameters, my health was just a disaster because it's super high stress, wasn't sleeping enough. There's only so much you can do to mitigate that when that goes on for years. I remember getting my blood work looking at my testosterone's like 220. And I told my doc, I'm like, okay, here's what I'm doing. You probably think this is a really stupid idea, but my cutoff is as long as my blood lipids and other stuff don't get so crazy that I'm at a high acute risk and I don't want to do any permanent damage to myself.
Yeah.
I'll come in, I'll do all the metrics. If I get to that state, then please tell me, I'll have a conversation about what I want to do different. But until that point, I'm okay with pretty shitty looking numbers, knowing that there hopefully won't be a chronic effect once I'm done.
Yeah.
Now, for other people, that may be completely unacceptable. But again, that was my decision because I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do. The cost is higher than what I want to pay, but here's my cutoff. Here's my line in the sand where once it crosses this area, then I have to radically rethink what I'm going to do.
That's great. That's the point of the lesson for me is to know what your thresholds are and not be immune or blind to the fact that there is going to be cost.
Oh,
to
yeah.
what you want to achieve. And I find that I know the reigning statistic is somewhere in the ballpark of 92% of people in North America who set goals never achieve them. And I ardently believe it's because they never have the conversation with themselves of understanding cost metrics to that goal. And therefore they're caught completely dumbfounded when the costs start to accrue. And so they simply disembark from the journey completely. And I think if more people had that conversation with themselves, eyes wide open about it all, like you've just explained there, I think you'd find a fascinating tip of the scales. I don't think it's the only factor as to why people don't achieve their goals, but I think it's a bigger one than most people realize. And I know let me just add this qualification because you mentioned I've gone through a PhD program. Yeah, but you got to remember, Mike, like I went to a philosophical process that's a religiously accredited school. So I didn't go through the rigors that you went through.
When it does a PhD process, it's not an easy free pass for anyone.
It wasn't easy, but I definitely didn't. I remember very well. You go because you and I were great friends. I still remember the picture of you and Jody hugging after you passed your oral dissertation defense.
Yeah.
So that's how long I've known you. And I'm like, oh man, thank goodness that's over for him.
Yeah. It's oof. And even now when I have some high stress periods, I'm like, huh, not doing my PhD anymore.
Could be worse.
It'd be
Could be
worse.
worse. Hey, it's funny. You said that, and that jarred me on something as well. Just another lesson. There's this. I don't know who said it. Sometimes I wonder if I said it, but I've heard it. I'm going to say that. I think people tend to overestimate what they're capable of accomplishing in a short period of time, and yet at the same time they underestimate what's possible if they were just to play the long game.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So for me, the equation I always use is simplicity plus consistency. Powerlifting has been great for me. You're obviously very familiar with the sport. I wasn't when I started. The sport is a squat, bench, and dead. And you do a lot of that. And of course, there's accessories and auxiliaries. And of course, there's other mechanisms necessary to make certain neural patterns stronger, certain muscle groups stronger to support those 3 lifts, but the simplicity of powerlifting is one of the reasons I love it so much. It's when I look at CrossFit and I look at high rocks, I'm like, that is so much.
Looks miserable.
It does. It looks miserable. Today's Thursday's deadlift day. I know what day it is and know what I'm doing. Of course, there'll be some auxiliary things, but I know my Thursdays are largely going to comprise varying aspects of deadlifts, maybe blocks or deficits, maybe tempos, maybe speed oriented, perhaps with some bands or change, but it's could be deadlift day. When I carry that through to parenting, when I carry that through to my relationship with my wife, when I carry that through my business ventures, it is such a straight line that works for everything. Do simple things and do them every day. And when you make life and business and relationships and money management, nutrition, when you make it about that equation of simple plus consistent, it becomes very quick to all focus easily. You realize how much you're overthinking and you're over complexifying everything is actually the seed of the problem. It's not that it's complex, it's that you're making it complex. So that simple plus the consistent equation that I learned primarily in powerlifting has really stood the test of time for me in other aspects of life.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's awesome. And I have a phrase I like, which is physiologic systems are complex, but your actions are simple.
Yeah.
Right. So you talked about a deadlift. Like we could have a day, probably a week-long conversation about all the different aspects of a deadlift, from training to nutrition to the execution, the cues, the nervous system involvement, rate coding, blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, if you get 3 white lights, you picked up the load. Better you did it.
Exactly.
There's a little bit of rules and hitching and that kind of stuff. But in general, you either picked the thing up or you didn't. So the action is surprisingly simple.
Yeah.
And to your point, I see people just get so caught in the complexity, but not realizing that they're stuck there. And then they let that bleed over into their action or lack of action. And then they can't figure out, like, why is my deadlift not going up? It's like the first question I ask people is like, when did you deadlift last? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I should do sumo or conventional, or they're so confused that they forgot you should just start deadlifting and then we can iterate on some action you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. But no joke. I see that in powerlifting all the time. The oscillation between, well, I'm going to do 5-3-1. I'm going to do some elite FTS. No, I'm going to do West Side Barbell. You're talking about 3 programs that could not be farther from each other.
Yeah.
Ideological makeup. They're not meant to dabble. Like you're not meant to dabble in 5-3-1. It goes back to that phrase, don't overestimate what you can do in a short period of time, but don't underestimate what's possible in the long game. If you were just to pick conventional and pick 5-3-1 or whichever you choose and just have some stick-to-itiveness to it. And it's one of those things, again, this is actually from powerlifting that I've brought into other aspects of my life. Powerlifting is one of those sports you cannot micro-analyze things. If you do, you're going to get really upset because when you start, you're talking about PRs every 3 weeks. And then you're 4, 5, 6 years in, and you're talking about PRs every 2 years. So, if you're looking session to session at your growth or your capacity, you're going to be sorely upset and frustrated and think you're not making any progress. For me, the terminology I always use is mother trends. From other trends. Microanalysis in business is equal. It's a disadvantage. It's not what your company did in a week. It's what it's doing over the next quarter, right? If we stop to analyze things every couple months, then we can start to look for other trends. Maybe the PR didn't improve, but my RPE had that load is substantially better. Look at that mother trend matters. So I think mother trends versus microanalysis is something that I've learned a great deal about in the weight room that has carried forward to other parts of my life as well.
And do you find that as you become more advanced, there's more variability, and that variability actually can mask some of your performance? So what I've noticed on lifts I've been doing longer is I'll have some days that are better, but I'll have some days that are like substantially worse from, what my average performance is. When you first start out, it's everything goes up, and then you hit a point where it's about the same and it generally goes up. But it seems like the longer you've been doing it, the variability starts getting more. And it's easy, I think, to get lost in the negative bias of, oh my God, my lift is down by 15 pounds today. And then this has happened to me multiple times. 3 weeks later, I get an all-time PR.
Yeah, I've experienced those. I've experienced swinging variables. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I've noticed it many times. It really is it's the contrast between starting out and being more advanced. I think that's probably the greatest explanation for it. But then understanding the X factors involved as to why it can vary so widely.
Oh, sure.
When you're starting out, obviously you're lifting heavy stuff. Like powerlifting is what it is. It's picking up things that are heavy or moving things that are heavy. But not all the metrics have to be aligned for you to move those things necessarily. As you advance, and now you're playing with 500, 550, 600 pounds, the metrics have to be aligned. And when they're not, you have a -10 on the day. If I didn't get a good sleep over the last 24 hours, or my carbohydrate consumption was just not good today, and so I don't have a lot of energy coming into the gym, maybe there's some residual stress from my business day that I didn't close. Now I have an open loop in my brain. I'm thinking about it. Those three things alone they're going to combine to make it that I'm not picking 600 pounds off the ground. As a matter of fact, I'll be lucky to get 540. And it does. It varies widely. 540 one day can feel like a truck. 3 weeks later, 620 flies up. And I think the metrics and the appropriation of them become so much more finite and delicate as you grow in a sport like powerlifting. Like the sleep has to be there, the recovery has to be there, the macronutrients, the calories have to be there, the hydration has to be there. In the absence of one or many of those variables, the room for error is just too great at that point. So I love that you brought that up because that's a huge thing. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, no.
I was sorry to interrupt. I was going to say,
Yeah.
one of the things I've changed so much over the last 4 years in my powerlifting career is recovery. I've added elements of recovery. I've dabbled because I've wanted to subjectively see what feels right to me. As a matter of fact, many years ago, I don't know if you recall, Mike, we had a conversation. We talked about cold plunging versus cold showering versus saunas. I don't know for sure. I want to say I remember you telling me that the research on it all was all fairly open. Like it's all good. What's best, it might not be a quantifiable piece of research yet, but here's what I've learned. Now that I'm talking to you, I'm interested in what the research shows. Nutrition therapy really has a positive impact on me.
Interesting.
I don't know why. It just, maybe it's a placebo. And hey, listen, placebos work. I have no problem with that.
Still better.
Still exactly. Compression therapy. And I've taken recently to cryotherapy. I don't like prolonged exposure to cold, which is weird because I'm from Canada. But cryotherapy is minus 161 degrees. You're in and out in 3 minutes. I don't know if it has an impact. I just know how I feel. I feel recovery. So those two things in particular. But long story short, I've had to take recovery more seriously. And that's been a huge part of the ascension and power.
Yeah, no, I agree with the recovery. And I have this theory, it's probably not just my theory, that compression stuff, the research on it's quite mixed. My thought pattern is that you get so much more proprioception by wearing compression stuff, especially if it's compression tights and you're just doing movement or Normatec or whatever. I just wonder about that your brain needs some sort of novelty. And with powerlifting, you're doing the same movements all the time. I've noticed like just simple walking seems to dramatically increase recovery for most people.
Oh my God, yes.
And I wondered if that is also just the other novel inputs. Yes, you have blood flow. Yes, you have movement, but stuff from just optic flow, like you're moving through an environment. A lot of times you're outside in nature. Your brain is getting these different inputs that are completely different from the lifting aspect. So I think there's a lot of components to recovery. And like you said with the cryo, I'm assuming it's the air-cooled one, correct? It sounds.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Research on that one is like really mixed. There is a couple of pieces of data that show it may change inflammation, where cold water immersion doesn't appear to change inflammation, but that was only one study on the air version. Both of them do dramatically jack up epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine,
That's good.
which feels great,
It's great.
right? And if you've ever done like high load stuff without muscle soreness, you've probably experienced like what people would call like a CNS fatigue, where it just feels like you got hit by a truck, but like you don't have muscle soreness, like your joints feel fine. Like the research on that is like even more split, but I think there is something to that aspect of a central nervous system, whether it's hormone related or whatever, where it's almost like you're like, lifting doesn't feel good, like your drive to do much isn't there, but you can't put your finger on anything that's going on.
Sure.
But I think there is something to there that like cryo and those things may help with that, where all of a sudden like you feel better, now you can go do more work, maybe do more low intensity movement, and it's a nice little circle.
Yeah. It's funny. I was listening to you talk about all that and your comments about compression therapy. So first of all, I go to the spa where they just basically they put these big long socks over your legs and feet, and then they turn it on and it just rhythmically with the air, right? And so the first time I did it, the tech is telling me, "Oh, here's what the way it works. This is lymph drainage and blah blah blah." And I wasn't rude, but I'm like in my head, I'm like, I don't believe you because I don't think you know what you're talking about necessarily either. I'm thinking about this. I'm lying down, watching L-sitting with my recliner, and I'm watching a funny TV show, and there's nice smells from the spa. Maybe that's the reason I feel better.
Yeah.
Just the environment is nice. And if you've ever had somebody give you like a nice hard massage, it feels good.
Yeah.
I don't claim it does anything for you, but it feels nice. So like I learned this from you years ago. Placebos matter. Matter. Still matter.
Yeah.
So those are my two choices right now, compression and cryo.
Yeah, and that's what's hard is I think people, again, get too mirrored in so the example I use all the time for teaching is, oh, you went to a massage therapist and they told you they're going to massage out all the lactic acid. Lactic acid dissociates into hydrogen protons, and lactic doesn't stay around very long. They're definitely not getting rid of any lactic acid. However, that doesn't mean that massage isn't beneficial or that you don't feel better, perform better, other metrics don't improve from that. The hard part is, what was the reason? Like you said, is it taking time away and giving yourself permission to do something that's beneficial? Is it the removal of outside stimulus? Is it somebody actually doing hands-on work on you? Was it the method they use? Who knows, right? And that's like decades of research to try to figure out what the main mechanism was, never mind you as an individual.
Right.
But if it's beneficial and you can show that it is beneficial, then yeah, keep doing it. I don't care what the research says. If you see a benefit, cool. As long as it's not bad.
Yeah. Matter of fact, Carrie I'm looking over my shoulder because he's right behind. It's right in the hallway back there. Carrie just bought a red light.
Yeah, I have one here. Yeah.
You're gonna see that? So we're gonna try red light therapy. And I'm like, dude, who knows? Let's give it a whirl.
Yeah, the short version on that. So photobiomodulation, there's some pretty good data on it. Like I first looked at it 4 or 5 years ago and it was the latest biohacking craze. And I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna look at the research and this is gonna be a disaster, right? It's gonna be three blind mice type studies.
Yeah.
And to my surprise, there's some actually pretty interesting data on it. That's actually pretty beneficial. The only caveat I would say is that if you go a little bit too much or too aggressive, it can, like all things, be a potential stressor, right? You stay in the heat too long, it's a stressor. You stay in the cold too long, it's a stressor. So red light the same way. If you because I've had a couple of clients get a little bit too aggressive right away, their HRV tank, their performance tank, they're like, oh, this thing's horrible. I'm like, maybe you shouldn't camp out in front of it for 20 minutes, like on day one. Let's just cut back your dose. And then everything was like better at that point.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to start. We got it just yesterday. I'm going to start with 5 minutes a day.
Yeah, that's what I would start.
Yeah. I'm even thinking about doing it post-training. I don't know why, but who knows? Well, I don't know, different times of day. I read something that says you should do it either at sunrise or sunset. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll do it post-training, see how I feel.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff because of the red light may help with circadian rhythms because there's more red color in the sun at sunrise and sunset.
Yeah.
Not much data on that. Like the muscle recovery stuff, I don't know. There's some data pre-training shows a little bit of performance enhancement. There's some data showing post-training shows a little bit more recovery. I think either one is fine. And again, you're back to what fits in your lifestyle. Like for me, I find that I'll get up and do it first thing in the morning after I do my little HRV measurement. Then I'll go do some cardio stuff, start my day, maybe do some cold water immersion. It's just easier for me if I put it in the morning
Yeah,
because usually I lift in the afternoon. So I don't like having a lot of things before I lift because that generally just means I can't lift as long then, just due to schedule wise.
that makes sense.
So again, it's back to what can you actually do in your schedule with, like you said, simple and consistent
Yeah.
over time that you actually get it done.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I keep you posted.
Yeah, for sure.
I will.
And you were talking about like things that definitely affect training, which I think is super helpful to know.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate them between here's an actual trend versus, oh, I've kind of overstepped maybe and ascribed a little bit too much of a negative effect to maybe the fact that you slept a few hours less? Because I have some clients who are like, oh my God, I got up this morning, bro. I was supposed to lift. I looked at my Aura data and it showed 15 minutes less of REM sleep. God, my performance today is definitely going to suck. It's like, probably not. Does that mean sleep and all those things you mentioned are not related to performance?
Mm.
No. But how do you sort out in your head of trying not to be hyper reactive and predictive to things that may or may not matter acutely for that particular day and that particular performance?
It's a great question. You used an operative word, which is predictive. I'm obviously not a neuroscientist at all, but I know enough about neuroscience to know that the human brain doesn't describe reality, it predicts it.
Yes.
That's basically the nuance of the brain. And so I ran into red flags myself when I started tracking certain X factors. And I caught myself more than once early in the day because I train like you in the afternoon. It's just a higher in time for me is when I train best. But I caught myself early in the afternoon or early in the morning on those days predicting that my session was going to be less than good and sleep well or something else. Maybe I was under calorie by and large for the day. And I had to have a conversation with myself related to the predictive nature of the brain versus experiencing what I need to experience to know more for certain. What I got out of the habit of was predicting anything related to my session that afternoon. So that was my first layer was I needed to stop having conversations with myself in the morning related to what my afternoon session was going to be like based on the X factors. So that was layer number one for me. And I accomplished that well. And then I try to take good notes after every training session in a journal that is as honest as I can make it based on the RPE, the stick-to-itiveness, the mental aptitude, meaning there's training and then there's training. And like everybody else in the world, my brain can be over there while I'm here in the weight room trying to accomplish something. And that disconnect is a challenge for me. Like when I'm in focus on what I'm doing, both my RPE is better, but also my experiences, I enjoy the training so much more when I'm committed to it mentally. So I try to take notes on all of that stuff. And what I learned is actually very interesting. I can get away with 4 or 5 days in a row of having poor X factors and still training. Around day 6 or 7, the X factors will really start to catch up. I wouldn't have known that though, had I predicted what sessions were going to be like. What I actually came to realize, I don't know if there's an overdrive. Maybe we all have it. Maybe I just have it. But on days I didn't get a lot of sleep, when I stopped predicting what my training session was going to be like, those were actually my best training sessions in my post-training journal. So I don't know if I compensated or if we all have a gear we can go into, but that seeing that in my journal over a number of weeks and months was all I needed to see was that A, my first layer is stop predicting, and B, just take detailed notes and follow the trend. And what the trend has shown me is that the X factors don't have to be in place until about day 6. And then the performance starts to fall. So if I know that, now I know everything I need to know about my data. So I don't know if there's an overdrive we all have, but honestly, my days where I got no good sleep whatsoever, maybe was not hydrated well, certainly didn't have enough calories, I always end up having the best training sessions.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Like you've seen that it's in competition. Like you've got highly competitive powerlifters show up dehydrated if they've got a 24-hour weigh-in, had travel, like they slept 2 hours the night before and hit lifetime PRs the next day.
It's amazing.
So to me, it's acute versus chronic, right? Your body can buffer a lot more acute stress than what people realize. And then just keeping track of kind of acute to the chronic ratio. Like you said, everyone will have this kind of tipping point or exponential point where it becomes much more difficult. But
Yeah.
I think that's so good because you're using performance to dictate what actually happened, because prediction in general is very difficult and a lot of times wrong. And you
Yeah.
don't want to like bias yourself in the wrong direction before you even touched a weight.
Yeah. And I did for a long time. I would bias myself. And that's when I realized that that layer had to come number. The first layer was stop predicting. Like that's the automatic. And that worked both ways for me. There were days I thought I was gonna be lights out in the gym that day, and I wasn't.
Yes.
Which led to me being annoyed and frustrated and looking for answers that didn't need to be looked for. So the deal I made with myself is your training sessions in the afternoon. You can start worrying about it in the afternoon. Just don't predict anything in the morning because it's likely not going to matter. But just collecting data on myself really, it opened my eyes to the blind spots I had. And it gave me an understanding of 6 days is basically, I train 4 days a week. So that's 4 training sessions for me. I can get away with 4 training sessions if my metrics aren't good. But on the 5th training session, there's going to be a problem. That's what my data has showed me. And I look at that as objectively important information.
Yeah.
Hey, I just
Awesome.
realized, I'm so sorry. I'm going to cut it
Got
short.
2 minutes.
I was going to
Yes.
say, I just realized now I got to run in a second. And I was
Yeah.
late, but this is going to fall.
No worries. But thank you so much. And where can people find more about all the wonderful stuff you're doing?
You know what? Find me on Facebook. I'm so not like a marketing guy. Just Brian Grasso. Find me on Facebook. Send me a friend request. Send me a message. I love people. I don't have a velvet rope around me. I love people like Dr. Mike T. Nelson, who I think is salt of the earth and probably one of the only scientists I ever. And Mike, the number of messages I've sent you over the years. Hey, Mike, this is what I read. Is this true?
Oh,
You're my go-to for all that stuff. And like me, you're just a regular guy who likes to help wherever I can. So find me on Facebook anytime you like.
cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for all your time. We really appreciate it. And have a wonderful day. Good to
Thanks,
see you.
Doc. Take care of
Yeah,
yourself,
thank
brother.
you. Bye-bye. Take care, man. Huge thanks to Dr. Brian Grasso for being on the podcast. Always enjoy talking to him all the time. I learn new stuff each time that we get to chat. I thank him for spending time to talk about the wonderful lessons from the world of lifting and exercise and how they can be applied to make your life better. Be sure to check out all the stuff that he has. We'll put links below here to it. And if you have questions for him, as he said, do hit him up. He does a really good job of getting back to everyone, which I'm not really sure how he does that, but it's literally him, which is amazing. I've worked with him before in the past, and all the products, all the stuff he has, definitely top notch and well worth it. I don't make a dime from any referrals or anything, but just want everyone to have good information. Him and his wife, Carrie, always have solid information. So huge fans of them. Hope to get to see them again in person. So thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you want to become more resilient and increase your recovery ability, and you want to check out the Physiologic Flexibility Certification, the Phys Flex Cert, it will open again in mid-March 2023. Go to physiologicflexibility.com for all of the details there. You can hop onto the wait list. That'll put you onto the newsletter. And as soon as it's open, I normally have some exclusive bonus items for you also. You'll be the first to get all the information there. Thanks again to Brian Grasso for all the great information. If you have a few seconds to leave us a review, that helps us out a ton. Stars you feel are appropriate in your favorite podcast player. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. And we will talk to all of you next week.
I have a good mind to go home.
You had a good mind, you wouldn't be here in the first place.